Hello and welcome to Class Solutions Dental Education Podcast, the podcast series where we share knowledge and experience to provide value to you in your dental practice. I'm your host, Phil Cole, and today's episode we'll be talking about pH Balanced, a new anesthetic for patients to experience less injection pain, less waiting, and more reliability, I should say. And I'm joined by Dr. Scott Keadle, who will be sharing his thoughts and giving us a better explanation of what is about to come. So welcome, Scott, to the podcast.
Thanks, Phil. It's an honor to be on here with you, and good morning from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah, a little bit nicer weather there than what we have here in Michigan, but that's all right. I'm jealous. Tell me, give me a little bit of information about yourself so that people can understand where this is all starting from.
Sure. Phil, I was a practicing dentist for about 30 years, and I obviously was like a lot of dentists that felt like our injections, as much as we try to be gentle, we try to use all the right techniques, all the devices, all those kind of things, we were still getting a little bit of injection pain. We're still getting a weight, especially on the lower jaw, to try to get a tooth numb. And, a lot of times they wouldn't get numb on the first time, especially if a tooth is inflamed or infected, of course. So for all those reasons, I had always wanted a better anesthetic and wondered why we couldn't have a better anesthetic. And I got to talking to my brother, who's a radiologist, and he was telling me he works at the VA, and they buffer their shots when they numb skin. And by buffering 5,000 times more acidic than human tissue in an injection, up to the body pH before they put the injection in. So now it's a neutral pH and it doesn't have that acid in it. And that really cures a lot of those side effects that we see from the acid. It no longer has that acidic sting. It no longer has that delay while you wait for the acid to go away. And again, on hot teeth, it's more likely to work. So, that caused me to eventually invent a dental cartridge, just a standard dental cartridge that had a little tiny chamber inside of it that would hold some sodium bicarbonate powder, which is baking soda. And when the lidocaine drug then mixes with the baking soda at the last minute, as you put the cartridge into the syringe, it just automatically mixes. So it's just like a normal cartridge for a dentist or a dental hygienist. They wouldn't know the difference. And then they're using this pH balanced drug that just works a lot better. So we have a patent on that, 2 patents actually. Now I'm retired from dentistry, and for the last couple of years I've been CEO of a pharmaceutical company that is developing this drug, and we're trying to get it to market. Excellent.
Yeah. So I guess you've explained a lot about the product already, but I mean, was there something that had just happening to you way too many times, or is this also you heard it from a bunch of other doctors that makes this product so important to you, and why it was worth solving?
I tell you, I always knew it was worth solving. I didn't really realize how big the problem was, I guess. I knew it was worth solving. I knew I didn't like waiting on the patient to get numb. I know the patient doesn't like waiting. And obviously, there's no way to gently inject acid into someone's face, right? You can be as gentle as you want. You can use all the gizmos, but acid is acid, and you can't get around that. So it's funny because it was sort of a challenge for my brother, because I told him, I said, dentist, we don't have any way to do that buffering process really a good way. And he said, well, he was kind of being smart aleck, right? Because he's my brother. And he's just like, well, you're a smart guy. Why don't you just invent a cartridge that does this? And so, I gave him a hand signal and said, okay, well, I'll give it a shot, and next thing I know, I talked to an engineer friend of mine. I showed him what I'd drawn, and he said, let's build a prototype. And we did, and it worked. So it was really a cool thing. So it's got goaded into inventing something, but once I did, then I realized I said, well, have I invented something that matters to anybody? So we went out, and first thing we did is we just looked at the size of the market. If I ask you to guess how many dental cartridges are used every year in the world, what kind of number would you say? And I would have had no idea. So whatever you say is.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, when you have what, 225,000 dentists in the United States, and how many injections you do per day, I can't. Would it get into the billions?
It's 2 billion every year in the world.
Oh my gosh!
You think about 8 billion people almost, and 2 billion injections. It's a lot of injections. Just in the United States and more affluent parts of Europe and Japan, South Korea, which is really where we're planning on putting this stuff, 744 million units of dental anesthetic by our reckoning. So and you may or may not know about what they cost, but I'll tell you that it's about $1. As a dentist, I didn't even know. It was, it turns out that it's about 1/4% of procedure cost. So if you look at the cost stack, for a provider, it rounds to zero, right? It doesn't even show up on your P&L.
Right.
And said that, it's very important to every single provider, right? We just fundamentally don't do dentistry without numbing people unless it's orthodontics. And so getting that and getting it right for a provider is just a huge thing. I know that, I gave something on the order of 50,000 or so shots in my career. And I think every single one of them raised my blood pressure a little bit because as a human being, you don't want to hurt anybody. Right. And you know that there's just no way to, right? I mean, you're going to stick a needle in somebody and that doesn't feel good. And then you're going to put acid in there and that doesn't feel good either. You can try all you want. And yes, I've had I can hear it out there already, right? Yes, I have also had the patients and the times and all the stuff where they say, I didn't even know you gave me a shot, doc. And those are great. But there's also the times where they feel it and they don't say anything, or they feel it and they do say something, and those are no good. So it's a huge market. Yeah.
Well, I just gonna say, I think that no matter what, no matter how good of a shot taker you are, right? I mean, you still have, which has always been in the dental industry, the patient that doesn't like to go to the dentist. And wouldn't you say it's in the 90% above? What's the reason why you don't like going to your dentist? And it's because of that shot.
I would tell you that we do a lot of terrible things to people at the dentist office, including give them a bill at the end for all of it, right? And when you add up everything else, and then you put the shot next to it, the shot is a bigger pain for dentists than everything else on the list. It's 58% was the number we got in our market research. So we went out and interviewed patients, and then we went out and gave questionnaires to patients. We had an independent research firm do this, and of course, wow. I had to share that research with you. But yeah, 58% of patients reported that the dental injection was the worst part of the dental experience. Which
I have to say that I am surprised with that. I would have thought it would have been easily in the 90%, because that's what you always, that's what you always hear is a can. It's either that or the high speed noise, right? The noise in the handpiece.
The noise, they report the knee on my chest, the smoke coming out my mouth, the bill that I got at the end, the wait time in the waiting room. These are all terrible things we do. We try not to, but we do. And this was worse than all that put together. So
yeah. So I know that being in dental for as long as I have been, coming close to 24 years, the conversation of this type of a product or the idea of this, and there has been some companies that have tried it, has always been in the books. I mean, you would always hear people talk about the science books, talk about this. So I guess, I mean, I'm know that most doctors are listening are going to understand probably what it is, but just for those new doctors that I think are coming out and stuff, I mean, why has it taken so long? I mean, the buzzword is buffering, right? It's
Yeah.
like you mentioned in the beginning, it's buffering. Why has it taken so long, do you think, for something that has been talked about in the science books? I know when I talked to my doctors when I was on doing my routes and stuff, it wasn't something. It wasn't something like, the wow, this is brand spanking new. I've never heard of this. They've heard of it. Why has it taken so long to come about? Why? I mean,
No, it's a great question. So I'll give some of the background. First of all, they know about it because it's been in their textbook for a long, long time. The most prolific textbook out there is by Dr. Stanley Malamed, who's a professor and kind of the guy in dental anesthesia. He's a dental anesthesiologist. His textbook has had that in there. It's an unequivocal statement. You should buffer. Period. End of story. There's a ton of literature and research out there that supports buffering. It's settled science, right? In medicine, particularly and really in dentistry. There's been a couple of small studies that have not been able to show what we all kind of know, but for the most part, all the studies have said the same thing, that buffering works. It's less painful, more reliable, and faster acting. So you got Dr. Malamed, Dr. Goodchild, Dr. Bedins, Dr. DeMarco, all these key opinion leaders in anesthesia. I should mention Dr. Mark Donaldson, who's not a dentist, but he's a pharmacologist. And all these folks, say that you should buffer unequivocally. I'm leaving people out. I'm afraid I'm going to get in trouble. Dr. Moore. I mean, the list just goes on and on. I know I forgot somebody, but
they'll give you a call later.
They will. And if you ask any of these folks, they're going to just tell you this is a good idea. So the question is, why was nobody doing it? And it's less than 1% of the people doing it right now. And the answer is there's just not been a good way to do it. So number one, it's a manual mix. Even with the devices that are being sold by a couple of companies, that's still, you don't know exactly what you're getting because the person who mixes it could mix it wrong.
Right.
There has been no FDA approved formula, right? Of what is the exact mixture. There's a lot of advice about it and there's a lot of science around it, but the exact mixture, no one has really said, hey, this is approved. So you could mix a little more, you could mix a little less. It's up to the doctor. And all this is done under the what's really the physician do that because you're a doctor. So dentists, when they do that, they're prescribing what they're doing for every individual patient, but they don't have an FDA-approved drug mixture that they're putting into that patient. So that's a problem, right? Am I really putting the right mixture in there, right? Nobody really looked into all this. There is salt in every drug known to mankind that's going to be injected because you put the salt, you try to put the right amount of salt in so that it's just exactly the right, like in your tears. If you get in the ocean, it's too salty. If you pour distilled water in there, it's not salty enough. Either way, it burns. You try to get the right amount of saltiness, and we call that isotonic. Well, the current non-buffer drugs are pretty much isotonic. So when you add a sodium bicarbonate salt, you get too salty. So our drug is going to take some of that salt out of the original formula so that when you put the sodium bicarbonate in, you're isotonic. So that's a great thing because again, when you're hypertonic, you're burning. So that's no good. What else? All these other devices and stuff cost money. It's upfront money. It's ongoing money. And then, the drugs that they're selling, it ends up being, after you amortize the devices in and, pay for everything, it's probably about $9 per cartridge equivalent. It's still actually a good deal economically, to be honest with you. If you do that math and say, well, what's the advantage to you? There's no doubt. And I think people should buffer even given the difficulty and complexity, because I think it's worth it, but it hardly seems worth it sometimes compared to what you're doing. You have to really do that math to know it. So $9 can look a little bit big compared to $1. Again, we're talking about a really small part of the procedure cost, but if you say, well, what would $3 or $4 look like? That looks a lot better. You're still
absolutely
still less than 1% of procedure costs, right? And you're still rounding to zero, and you don't see it or feel it. So I think for all those complexity and economic reasons, and then again, sort of an inconsistent drug and the danger of getting way too hypertonic if you accidentally put too much in there, then I think that's keeping people from doing it right now.
So when you're talking about the science and stuff again, I mean, I know you're trying to find the perfect blend, right? Per se. Is there really such a thing though? I mean, there's not going to be such a thing as the perfect blend, right? It's going to be the almost perfect blend just because of ethnicities, right? Because of, I mean, with it being an African American, a Latino, us, as white, do we have different pH values based on that, or is that not the case? Because I know that bone structure, different things like that, there is when trying to go into the jaw. So I just was wondering, does that have any? That's not the effect?
The tissue pH, I'm not an expert in this, but I'm probably enough of an expert to answer this with pretty good. The tissue pH is pretty much the same across all populations. So that's not a thing. The right mixture, though, what was thought to be the right mixture, I will just tell you, we went and did, my company did a lot of very expensive chemistry and chemical analyses. Mm-hmm. Came up with what we think is an ideal mixture. And that was a lot of really, highly educated and well-paid scientists that did that.
Yeah.
So we're pretty darn comfortable with what we're going to submit to FDA.
And so to be clear too, because like I said, the other companies out there, I know that one of them, you got to have this big green syringe, you got to turn a dial and all this stuff. And although that it works, some of the times, once again, there was always that thought process of, like you said, that it's less time, right? It's less setting time. But then you always had to go, well, by the time you turn the dial, by the time you do this, pull it out of this machine and blah, 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 and get it in a syringe, am I really saving that much time? Plus the expense. You're basically, what you're developing is literally the syringe. It's going in a normal syringe I mean, you're developing a cartridge, sorry. You're developing just the plain old cartridge. It's going to go into any normal syringe, and you're going to have a pH balance.
Yeah, it's a standard, and I'm going to use a word that if Dr. Malamed heard me say it, he'd come over here and wring my neck. He'd get on a plane and come over. But I'm a carpule.
Yes,
was a trade name from a long time ago. He said, you not call these things a carpule. So it's a dental cartridge. It's the standard cartridge. If you threw yours up in the air and didn't watch, I could catch it and drop mine back down. And when you caught it, you wouldn't know the difference. The only thing you
Excellent.
know is it worked faster, hurt less, more reliable in your patient. And I want to say a thing or two about these other products. First of all, my company and the dentist who kind of founded it, and all the scientists that have been working on this project, we're standing on the shoulders of people like Dr. Mick Falco and Dr. Davidian, who came up with these buffering methods, and Dr. Goodchild and Dr. Donaldson, frankly, who came up with another buffering method that you could use if you just wanted to kind of do it yourself kind of thing. These people have been working on it a lot longer than I have. I can't begin to tell you how grateful I am to those folks and folks like Dr. Malamed, who and the folks at all the research institutions that did all this prior work to know that this worked. I found a good way to do it in the cartridge, but these folks worked out the fact that this was a good thing and promoted it. And frankly, I think like Dr. Falco's device, I think it's absolutely worth it because in the end, if you tell me I've got one way to numb somebody and another way to numb somebody, and this way to numb somebody is better, and there's no doubt about it, Dr. Falco's method on pHarma is better. It's better than a non-buffered cartridge.
Right.
And so you say, well, what are you going to do on your family, Scott? What are you going to do on your mom, your sister, your brother, whatever? Well, I'm going to use Dr. Falco's system, right? It's $9. That's fine. That's my mom. That's my sister, whatever. Right. So I can't look you as a patient or any of my patients in the eye and tell you you know what I mean, that I'm going to use something that I wouldn't use on my family. So I got to throw this one away and pay the $9 and do what's right for my patient. That's the way I feel about it. And I'm sure somebody's going to throw bricks at me for saying that, but that's just too bad. That's how I feel about it. If you don't feel that way, you're not my customer. Too bad.
Well, and I think that's something that there's a lot of dentists out there that share that same thing, but there's a lot of dentists that also still will look at that dollar and how much it's costing and say. Now the other thing is I think one of the things that I've always run across is, like you said, I think the only difference is with all the different things out there, which I'm so excited about your product, is the inconsistency. I think that's something that you would hear doctors, yep, I did it and it didn't work, or it worked only 50% of the time. Or my patients, they didn't notice any difference. I think one of the biggest things for me that I always tried to express was not the shot itself and how fast acting it was. It was the pH balance, that how long the shot or how quickly the shot would go away. Because for me, going to the dentist and if you have to get a shot and now I'm numb for the next hour and a half, and I got to jaw, can't drink my coffee in the morning, and that would kill me. That to me was always, if you want to call it, my selling pitch more than anything, because as a professional, I always would say a lawyer, and I would always ask the dentist, when do you have your professionals come in the most? Usually in the morning, so they could get it done, get out and start their day, right? But yeah. What is the worst way to start your day with your jaw numb and your lips tingling and stuff? So, right. I mean, that to me is one of those things that I always thought was the best selling feature. Would you agree with that?
Well, that doesn't
not change. The best selling. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say best, but would agree with that as one of the features.
It's actually not a feature. This drug will last the exact same amount of time as a standard lidocaine articaine drug. It's not going to change that at all. It will.
So it's not the side that or the coming off of will not change at all.
It won't wear off any sooner at all. They tried to get a product to do something about that. It really kind of was a clunker and didn't work as well as it needed to, and didn't really But when somebody comes up with that trick where you can turn the anesthesia on and then turn it back off again, they're going to have a big seller there too. I don't know how they're going to do it, but maybe someday somebody will. But right now, there's a product out there, but it's not a real good product, and it's kind of expensive and clunky. It doesn't well. Yeah.
Okay. So the pH balance isn't going to change anything on that side effect or on that whatsoever.
It won't change that. And I want to address an issue you brought up about, a dentist might say, well, I didn't notice, the difference and only work half the time and so forth, so on. That's kind of fair. But the truth is, as a driver, when you're going around the track, when you're going faster, you might feel like you're going faster or you might not. My brother's kid races and is a really good race car driver. And so you really got to wait on the scientist to tell you whether you went faster around the track or not. So are you improving the performance? You are. We know it. We know it because the scientists have studied it. Is it always immediately, on every single patient? Can you tell it? Not necessarily, but it might be better and you just don't quite know it, right? And you can't quite tell it on any individual patient. But I'll tell you this, if anybody ever just goes, and I've done this, right? And you just have a double-blind person bring in, they don't know what they got, they give it to you, they put one in right here and one in right here, and one's buffered and one's not. You can instantly tell which one was which. One hurts less and it works almost instantly. And the thing for a patient is, they don't like sitting there waiting, being in your desk chair. So they got to wait. And then while they're waiting, they're wondering, am I numb enough? And the odds on them being numb enough at any given time are much higher if you're using a buffered drug. So even if it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes that you decide you're going to wait anyway, you're going to go check hygiene or whatever, at least when you come back, the odds on that patient, not feeling something when either you test them or you just start drilling or whatever you start doing, there's not going to be this, oh, whoa, doc, I'm not numb. And there's a country song about that, and we all know that.
Oh, absolutely.
So I don't want to be called some beach, right? And dentists don't. And, one of the things you can do, even if you want to just wait the same amount of time, buffer, and then they're more likely to be numb. I understand that right now, everybody doesn't really know what buffering is. It's one day in school, and if you happen to be out that day, you probably didn't hear about it. I understand the products are a little bit clunky and they're a little bit expensive, and I got that. I will say to the expense part, even at the $9 that's being charged for the current products, you're making up way more than that in marketing advantage, because if you can tell your patient, I'm using the absolute pH balanced, least painful thing that I can use on you or your child or loved one. And this is where the market research really showed us, like, it was a big percentage of patients that said, an issue, but it's like 100% of parents. I want this for my kid, right? I don't want you hurting my kid. And we've got a video we can show you that it's just unbelievable. But the parents really don't want that. And again, like I say, as a dentist, I don't want it for any of my loved ones, and I don't want it for any of my patients who really kind of are my loved ones in the end.
Right.
Yeah.
So that video will be on, is that on your current website at thebalancedpharma.com?
I don't know if we've got the patient video up, kind of a man on the street video, but we'll get that up if we don't have it up.
Send it to us and we'll make sure we put it up for you too.
We definitely have a really nice demonstration of the technology video. It's a 3D animated video that shows the technology and explains it. Yeah, it's only 60 seconds.
Excellent. So what's your feeling or when it comes to the FDA, and I know this is maybe a question that you cannot answer, but to me, this is one of those things where I think this is a really, really important product, right? It like you said, if the families are saying that it's a big deal, and I think it is a big deal, is there something that the dental community can do to help get this product out quicker than waiting for the FDA to do its normal? I mean, I don't know how the FDA works. Does the FDA take any type of a, like, hey, we're really hearing that this product is needed? Does that help? Does that not? Because I always feel sometimes like the dental community doesn't, when there's something really good, doesn't all the time, not all the time, I should say, but some of the times just doesn't back something as much as what you all should do, especially since you're learning it, like you said, in the science books, it works.
Yeah, I will say this. First of all, FDA, I had no idea what FDA was like. You always hear all these stories about government agencies and all this kind of thing. And unfortunately, and I'm not a big government person, you can kind of look me, but having said that, let's be fair with these people. What I encountered at the FDA was brilliant scientists who were dedicated to their work. They, they saw this product and they're very interested in making sure that we do what we can to try to get a better product to market like this. They understand the need here. I think they're going to work just about as fast as they can. Really, the big thing that I think the dental community can do is just start talking about this and just start demanding of the current anesthetic suppliers and their distributors, right? Henry Schein, Patterson, Darby, Benko. I'm sure Atlanta, I'm going to leave somebody out and get more people here. But Septodont, Perel, Enipsis in other markets, 3M, all these people make anesthetics. And what I would say is just start talking about it on the different places, the different platforms at Dental Talk, and start demanding from pharma that they get you this product. Tell these people to help Balance Pharma, become partners with Balance Pharma, and get this product to market. And that will help us get financed faster, spend more money at risk, and get FDA, because FDA can only do things when we ask them to do it, and we can only ask them if we've done our homework. And our homework takes a lot of money, right? We've got to test things and provide paperwork and so forth. So the better we're funded, the faster we can get it to market. And the more that dentists complain about the lack of products, the better, the faster and sooner and better we're going to be funded.
That's awesome. Well, yeah. I mean, and I think that's a big thing, because I think this is a product that, to me needs to be kind of, if you want to go back to like kind of the standard of care, like you said, it shouldn't be a syringe that you can only get from one place. That we should be making sure that we get, like you said, get all the companies involved, get everybody talking about it and stuff. So, is there anything else when it comes to the product that I missed that you feel is kind of a standout for the product, or anything on that order anything that we missed?
No, just that again, we're out there trying to figure out how to fund this project, and we've gotten a lot of funding, most of it from dentists, frankly, and providers, because they understand, dentists, dermatologists, dental hygienists, people who understand this market. We're also now, looking for other partners to come in, right, to help us get this project funded. As you might expect, it takes tens of millions of dollars to get this done.
Oh, absolutely.
We want to play in the sandbox with all the people that are interested in this, all the people that have been out there bringing products to market and providing products, and you were part of that ecosystem. But when you look at, Dentsply, Septodont, Premier, just all these companies, Patterson, Henry Schein, again, all these distributors, all these folks, they all want to get better products for their customers and better products for patients. And we want to partner with all of those folks in any way we can, and just play our part in this. So
So do you have a current round available for anybody that's listening that they could invest and stuff?
We do. So the easiest way to do that is just go to balancepharma.com and you can kind of see the, investor relations button and punch it, and then it'll give you information about that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the information, the time. I'm excited, so I will say that it would be really nice if the FDA could make it as soon as possible, but we know how all those things work. It takes time.
I would love to lay the blame on the FDA, but the blame for any delay is on us, honestly. I think we're going really fast. I think we've done a great job, but it's FDA's, that's not the problem.
Well, good. So, well, hopefully everybody that's listening can, go to that to your website once again, which is balancedpharma.com. I think that make sure that my words are coming out right too. When I say that, it's balanced with a D. So it's balancedpharma.com to go to the website. And you are right, up in the right-hand corner, there is an investor button that they can click on. So anyone that's listening, take a look at the website. And if you're interested in investing, it would be a great way, once again, to get this product out even quicker. So I want to thank you, Scott, for coming on and going through not only the science, but the opportunity that we have in front of us to bring this product out to all the dentists. I think it's definitely one of those products that is very important and is well needed. So thanks once again. And if you enjoyed our show, please rate us, review us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Phil Cole. Thanks again, Scott, and thanks everyone for listening.
Phil, it's been an honor.